Hello everybody, good evening and welcome into DogZone. It's a pleasure to be back here joining you on the show once again, and we have had the running of the Group 1 Active Electrical Christchurch New Zealand St Ledger last week, and that will be the main focus of tonight's show. Joining us here on DogZone is Mark Rosanowski. Mark, it's a pleasure to be back on the show with you, and I'll say a very good evening to you.
Yeah, hi Eddie, good to have you back in off the back of your honeymoon. Real pleasure to be at your wedding. Greyhound party that took me back many years, I've got to say there. And well, last week it was a chance for me to get down to Christchurch in your absence, I suppose, and with Philippa Morris we witnessed quite an extraordinary night that we're going to chat about a whole lot of things really. St Ledger, obviously it was the feature, but it is 6 days ago now, and the winner has raced again since. Andy, look, I hope your first week's been okay. I'm sure it has been. I'm sure not much has changed at Rockwood Lodge. And just remember, every day now is Valentine's Day.
Oh, I don't know about that. Hope Janine doesn't tune into the show and watch this, because I'll never live that down, and she'll bring that up every day of the week. Thank you very much for that, Rozo. That's outstanding work. So the feature on Thursday night was the Group 1 Active Electrical Christchurch New Zealand St Ledger. It was taken out by Diddley, the dog, in the blue rug of box number 4.
Racing. Max Dancer jumped nicely, so did a Power Viking that finds the top quickly. Right up there, Diddley, and close up Kiwi Gal round the bend out of the straight, but a Power Viking's away by 4. A Power Viking now, here comes Diddley out after it. Down on the inside, Kiwi Gal, Max Dancer with some work to do. They're followed back in the pack there by Manuka. Out wide on the track is Idle Dude, well back the other two. Double Speed Von Stress, up they come, but a Power Viking clear. Diddley is mowing it down. Diddley has got to a Power Viking, and Von Strass was third. They're followed in a blanket finish. Double
Diddley getting the job done there for Team Turnwald and Freeman. Rozzo, he was chasing the right dog down the back. Power Viking getting to the back in 17 and 63, showing the pace he usually does. But Diddley was always close enough, and you knew a long way from home he was a big danger.
Oh, without a doubt, Andy. It's hard to know where to actually start on this particular race. So I guess we start with the winner, Diddley, but we're going to hear more from one of the part owners very shortly. But this dog, of course, had run second in the Spion Rose against all comers, so he was always going to be a chance, of course, in this particular race against his own age. I thought he'd drawn awkwardly, Andy, and he was in box number 4. A Power Vikings, obviously, with the speed, but Kiwi Gal underneath Diddley I thought was going to be an issue. Max Dancer couldn't go with him early, and more on the drama across the top shortly. But Andy, I think the key thing here, no panic from Diddley, happy to sit parked outside Kiwi Gal, let her do her own thing and he could do his own thing, accelerated past her in the back and then was able to run down her Power Vikings, who again, as you said, amazing early sectionals but just can't quite get over the line.
Yeah, he just struggles a little bit with the 520 metre journey, but geez, he's got speed to burn, Power Viking, and you'd have to think he's some kind of chance in races like the Derby, which is upcoming. Rozzo, obviously the run of the third dog, Von Strass, was tight. He got home in 12 and 21, thanks to the boys at Form Pro for getting those through to us, and that was the fastest run home. Had she have got a little bit handier, she would have been right in the finish for a winning position.
Yes, certainly, Andy. I mean, she was lucky in that across the top, she got a lovely run through underneath dogs who were badly checked. Now, the dog who looked like it was going to run second or third was Max Dancer, who was the favourite at start number 6. And Philippa and I, prior to the start, were thinking and said live on air, well, it's so hard to put this Class 1 6-start Greyhound on top, or 5-start at the time. And we saw why, because racing across the top, when Kiwi Gal angled out, Max Dancer had the opportunity to go through, and she seems to rail quite nicely, but she followed Kiwi Gal, dragged her down. If she hadn't done that and run through the inside, she's third definitely, and who knows what else she might have done from there. And Von Strass did run home very strongly, of course, but there would have been traffic ahead of her. Kiwi Gal obviously was affected in that incident, and so was Idle Dude, Andy, who ended up 4th out wide, and he got forced wide too. So it was quite dramatic across the top there. Honours the winner, great speed, the second dog, and in behind some dogs you say, hey, with more experience, they could win a pretty decent race.
They certainly could. It was certainly interesting tactics across the top from your favourite Max Dancer, and she was well supported as well. She went around as a short-priced favourite. You touched on Idle Dude, Manuka and Double Speed, a couple of young greyhounds in behind. Double Speed not able to find the early lead, but he's whacked away okay in the midfield.
He has. I think it's going to be a good form race, Andy. I think they're well worth following, and there are a few backing up in a couple of restricted age features at Addington tomorrow. So I think there'll be good form coming out of that St Ledger, and you can put a mark next to a few for different reasons for some of them. In terms of the winner, Diddley, Angela Turnbull's now trained the last 3 winners, Group 1 winners in the country. Well, 2 of them are Nature's Gent and then, of course, Diddley. And there is a part owner who is in both of those dogs, and his name is Kevin Brady. He's got a fairly interesting backstory, but today we'll concentrate mainly on the dogs that have been winning them these Group 1s. So when I caught up with him yesterday, I asked him, look, what emotions are you feeling right at the moment?
Yeah, well, it took 18 years to win the first one. And then to win 3 in a row was just unbelievable. Yeah.
Did you see it coming?
No. You could always dream, but no, I didn't see it coming. No.
Let's talk about the latest Group 1 win. Diddley went down to Christchurch and beat a powerful local contingent and quite a hot northerner too, Kiwi Gal, in the New Zealand St Ledger. And he had box 4 and he paid more than $7 on the tote. So what were your expectations leading into that race?
Well, I knew he'd run a good race. He's a pretty honest greyhound, and did I expect him to win? Not really, but hoped. And just the way the race unfolded, well, you never know what's going to happen, do you?
What were you thinking down the back straight? I mean, Apawa Viking's not the strongest dog, but he did have a big lead.
Yeah, and I thought down the back straight, pretty confident of a place, and then pretty confident about second, but it wasn't until they sort of straightened up, and then all of a sudden, big strides, yeah. Diddley,
he made a big impression, sort of, his first up win at Manawatu, I remember pretty well. So has he sort of been good right from the off? You expected that from the off?
Oh, he's been a bit of a mixture, but he's run some brilliant races, and obviously the talent's there. And, he just keeps surprising, yeah.
Paul Freeman, of course, his partner Angela Turnbull, is the Group 1 trainer of the moment at the moment, if you like. So how did you get involved with them?
Oh, way back, Wayne Steele, I had a few dogs with Wayne Steele up in Tamutu, and he sent some of them down to Christchurch with Paul. Oh, that's going back a long time ago. And I've just kept dogs from that time onwards. I've had dogs with Paul and, of course, now I'm Angela. And so I've had a pretty long association with them. They're a great couple, yeah.
Nature's Gent won the Spion Rose in December and then the Hattrick Classic in January to post a 3rd Group 1 win because, of course, he won the 2017 New Zealand Cup, which is the richest race we've got in the code. So how special is Nature's Gent to you? And has he sort of given you the highs, the biggest highs in your...
Oh, yeah. And probably the New Zealand Cup, although it was the 2nd Group 1 I'd won, it's just the status of the race, yeah.
You mentioned the New Zealand Cup. I mean, is that the one of Nature's Gent's victories that maybe you appreciated above the others?
Oh, I think so, yeah, yep. And that was a good run as well, yeah. Classy.
Yeah. Did you go into any of those races with confidence?
No. Love to, but yeah, no. They're just so hard. There's so many good dogs around, and you just got to be right on the day. And as I say, you're always hoping, but there's no guarantees in racing. Yeah.
What do you think makes him special? Because a couple of times I've written him off. Have you?
No. But no, he's just genuine. He loves racing. You can just see it. You've only got to be with the dog. It's a very special animal. Mind you, they all are. Love greyhounds. Yeah.
Kevin Brady, he's actually on the Judicial Control Authority. In upcoming weeks, we'll talk about that and also look back at a very important role that he had for 7 years. He wasn't able to be there at Addington. He does like to follow his dogs around, but he's the president of the Tawa Bowling Club, and they had a tournament on that day, so he had to watch it from his lounge room. But members of the Brady, Patrickson, Sibiak Syndicate and J-Dogs Syndicate, and I had to look down at that, Andy, because it's one of the hardest syndicates to read, but there were a couple of members there at the dais enjoying the spoils there on Thursday night, and well done to them all.
Yeah, it's always good to see the good people of the game getting nice victories, and Kevin Brady and the team there certainly fit that bill. Another one of the features on Thursday night was the New Zealand Racing Series distance. This one over the extreme distance at Addington Raceway of 732 metres. Ros, I was taken out by Perfect Result, and before we get into it, bet of the day rolling home at 5.50. I think you need to stand up and take a bow.
Yeah, look, Andy, thanks for that. I did some pretty average things during the week as well, so it's nice to highlight this one, isn't it? He got to the lead. Translator missed the start, as we saw there, about 4 lengths last, settling down. Tradition was a little bit awkward early. That's the dog in the black and white rug. The dog to keep an eye on here, Andy, is number 3, the white rug of No Anxiety, who, thanks to Form Pro, have told us ran home faster than Perfect Result. But take nothing away from this winner. He is a dog, Andy, who had done really good things in 2 732-metre races leading into this, and both times he had beaten Translator home. And once he got up on the lure, of course, he was home. I was going to say home James, but it's home Ray, really, isn't it, for Ray Adcock and Ray Amer. Really good time, 43.42. He's the track record holder at 645 metres there. And with races like the Wanganui distance and obviously longer term, the Duke of Edinburgh Silver Collar coming up, Andy, Perfect Result looks in for a good few months, I think. Having said that, there are a few other things to come out of that race, and probably most notably a maiden dog, No Anxiety, running to the line the way that it did, kind of had Silver Collar flashing on its head.
Certainly did. There was just a big run from her. She's always been a greyhound that's shown ability, but she does tend to not like to mix it into the first turn, which does let her down. She should have probably won a race or two by now, and runs like she put in that 700-metre journey certainly indicate that. Rosso, what do we take out of the run of Tradition? He looked a little bit awkward leaving the back straight. Clearly, he's a better stayer than what we saw from him there, and he's certainly a dog with a bright future in front of him as well.
Yeah, well, he's the dog in the black and white stripes, and of course, Andy, he had been slow out in his races, except at Ascot Park, of course, when they stepped him up to the 630 metres, and he did lead home Translator and Perfect Result on that occasion. As you say, he was awkward into that first bend, and then he's inclined to race a little wide. He has got breeding on his side. He's out of assisted. Can't Catch Tim, a tremendous stayer, and of course, his Grand Dam is a Silver Collar winner. It was also first time under lights. I know it doesn't look particularly dark at that time. What was it? It was 8:52, so it was just that awkward light too, Andy. I don't think that helped this dog. He's inexperienced. They've started him off young as a stayer, but Andy, Jean and Dave Fahey did that with Translator. I think it's paid dividends across her career. I would not be dropping Tradition on this. I think this is a pretty good form distance race going forward.
Another race that did take place last week, we saw Don't Knock a G coming back, and in terms of looking forward to our staying races, then she certainly won with a big chance in upcoming Group 1 700-metre events. Rosso, this was some sort of effort. She's fresh up since the 23rd of November. She drew box 8, which probably suits her. She was able to get to the lead. She's broken 30 seconds, and this was a big win.
It certainly was, Andy. Look at those sectionals, 4.99, so that's sub 5 to the first bend, 18.35 back mark, and 11.60 run home. Well, she can do better than that. This is first up after a season, and it's her first season as well, Andy. I guess the key now is, can she maintain this type of form and string it together? Because she hadn't really been able to do that thus far. There have been these flashes of brilliance. Having said that, she was starting to get a wee bit more consistent. Now that she's had that season, and now that she's had that run, really looking forward to her and what she does. Now, Brendan Cole saying, certainly, of course, the Duke of Edinburgh Silver Collar in June is the long-term target. But what next? The logical thing is the Wanganui distance on the home track there at Hattrick over the 755 coming up in about 3 weeks' time. But it coincides with the Auckland Cup. And Andy, on that particular run, a $90,000 middle distance race has got to be attractive as well, as opposed to a $30,000 staying race. Of course, the Cole Kennels have got plenty more dogs that can attack the Auckland Cup. She's in box 1 in a very strong field on Sunday afternoon, the Manukau Cup. If she ran a slasher there, which you'd think she might, I think they'll have a big decision to make, Andy. Auckland Cup or Wanganui distance.
She's always been a greyhound that's shown immense talent, hasn't she? She went through a period there where she wasn't mixing it early. She's certainly got over that now, and if she can continue to run that, I think you're right, Rosso, she's certainly a chance in races like the Auckland Cup that is coming up. Another greyhound that we did see go around last week was Ringside. He'd had one start in the country. That was in a heat of the New Zealand St Ledger. Things went wrong for him there, Rosso, when he got on the wrong side of Fair Dodger, and unfortunately we saw that what can happen to dogs that happens to with Monster Fish on Monday at Manawatu as well, but gee, bounced into form here. 593, 1767, 29.84. This bloke's got a serious engine.
Oh, without doubt. And look at the dogs in behind that are chasing. Ophelia Allen and Gem had both been winners there on Thursday night and have tremendous talent, and he's just put them to the sword there. Time just astonishing in the Alvin Hibbs Memorial. Now, the Alvin Hibbs Memorial has been going for a very long time, Andy, and that Memorial Day, I know you were back for that on Sunday, just seems to sort of gather momentum every year, and I think it's a wonderful thing for the Christchurch Club to acknowledge those people who have, many of them essentially pioneers in the sport, and certainly made their mark, and it's an opportunity for lots of people who we don't see at the greyhound races anymore. They do come for Memorial Day, and I must say it's becoming a bit of a reunion day, and I probably have to make the effort to get down in the next year or two.
It certainly is a good afternoon. It's usually on a Sunday, and I think that'll be the same next season as well. And yeah, it's always good to see the oldies getting out there and enjoying a day, and just having a nice little reunion and seeing people that you don't see at the races all that often. On Monday at Manawatu, we saw the running of two Class 2 375 metre races. Now, usually there wouldn't be a lot to stand out about those, but on this occasion, Rosso, Diane Donlan goes bang, bang and back-to-backs them.
Does with the sisters. White Comets won 3 in a week, and Cool Wolf, after bombing the start on Friday night at Hattrick, then came out and won. And this is White Comet there, and here is Cool Wolf, which they're fanning across the track. It's about 6 winning chances there, but Cool Wolf in the blue rug gets over the top. So firstly, congratulations to Diane Donlan for that double, for 3 in a week with White Comet. And the other thing to mention, Andy, and I haven't done any in-depth analysis of this litter, but they're by Exact Master out of Working Twinkle. And I was chatting with Brian Hunt at the track, and of course he had Exact Master after it had started off in the north, and he actually was pretty well bred, but he came out here and he had a few injuries and he never really got cranking. He raced well into the twilight of his career, and he won 5 or 6 races out of a whole stack. He's not what you'd think is a quintessential stud dog, and he has only had this one litter. Working Twinkle had 1 placing in 30 starts, Andy. But this litter, aside from the 2 we've just seen, there are actually other very capable members of the litter putting together really nice records.
They certainly are, there's no doubt about that, and yeah, as you touch on, they're certainly not bred in the purple, but they're doing a great job, and it's good to see the little guys like Diane having a good day out at the office there on Monday. We're going to head to a quick break here now on DogZone. On the other side, it's all about Super 6 and the Golden Chase.
I knew from the first time I stayed for a long time, 'cause I like me better when I'm with you.
Welcome back into DogZone. On Thursday, as well as the Group 1 St Ledger, we also saw the first trial of 6-dog fields. Rosso, personally not sure there was a lot of difference. Obviously 500 metre racing was the main difference. Gem, for instance, getting a run from last that she probably wouldn't usually get, but apart from that, didn't seem to be a lot of different, just first hand for mine.
Yeah, Andy, it's a situation whereby a far greater core sample would be required, but there had to be a starting point, and this was the starting point. So well done to Christchurch and Greyhound Racing New Zealand for getting into it, putting it out there and giving us at least a bit of a taste. From the stipendiary stewards, Scott Wallace and Rick Quirk, certainly their report didn't take as long to write up, not as much interference. I mean, there's 2 less dogs for starters anyway, so it stands to reason. There was one dog who got an injury in the last race, but that didn't appear to be, well, certainly wasn't related to the racing because it virtually took no part and wasn't related to the track or couldn't be directly linked to the track either. So that was just unfortunate. And one dog did fall Hankenstein, but was probably was just in an awkward spot that was going to happen in any particular race. So, yes, we had 10 races, and clearly we can't draw too much out of that immediately. But it's a very interesting concept. And we are not alone in doing a bit of a trial, but we've sort of tried to take the lead. Greyhound Racing New Zealand and Christchurch became the vehicle for that. But an interested spectator there was the CEO of Greyhound Racing Victoria, Alan Clayton. And apart from the plane, I asked him what brought him to Christchurch.
Look, it's part of our interest in animal welfare more generally. You know, it's part of the game now with Greyhound Racing that we are looking at reducing track injuries, and we're looking at making sure that we've got clean racing. And over the last 3 or 4 years, you know, Australia, individual jurisdictions, New Zealand have introduced changes to the way the racing works to see what improvements we can make for the outcome for the animal welfare of the dog. And we've taken an interest in 6-dog racing because part of the problem on a track can be collision, and 8 dogs in a field can cause issues. And so New Zealand's taken a step of looking at 6-dog racing, and it's been tremendously good racing, clean racing, open racing, hardly any rubbing with the dogs, and I think it's been quite impressive. And we've actually just introduced from the 1st of February in Victoria for our maidens, because a lot of the inexperienced dogs tend to run all over the place, and we felt by lessening the numbers of dogs in the field, there was less likely that there would be any issues for the dogs. I think it's the general exploration of trying to reduce track injury and race injuries, and for us to produce a really good product for the public.
Do you have a specific trial period for that?
Look, we're looking at it about 4 months where we'll trial it. Sometimes we take a little bit longer. You've got to get feedback from the trainers. We tend to rely heavily on consultation with our participants in terms of their feedback. And the other issue, of course, that you're looking at is the revenue impact in terms of the punting itself. And so you need a long enough period to understand whether it's sensible from a revenue perspective. But given what maidens are for us, you know, they're not the biggest revenue generator in our racing. It just made a lot of sense for us that the inexperienced dogs would get an easy entry into the racing program.
So that was Alan Clayton, and we do thank him for giving us his time. Now, Rozo, 2 things. Obviously, he's hit the nail on the head there in my thought process as well, that the 6-dog field probably better suited to maidens and Class 1 greyhounds that have less experience than what we saw on Thursday of high-grade greyhounds that know what they're doing. The second obvious discussion that needs to be had is the effect that this will or won't have on our turnover.
Yeah, certainly, Andy. Now, look, I don't have access to specific turnover figures. I have been a turnover nerd. In my garage at home, I have scrapbooks that list every turnover in the late 80s, early 90s, probably up to about 95. They used to be published in a daily newspaper. Some of the turnovers we used to do in the late 80s, early 90s would make your eyes water these days. So what I'm going on here is anecdotal, my thoughts, my opinion, watching the tote pools, and of course generally now so much money coming in fixed odds. For the fixed odds bets, Andy, you've got to think that a large punter would be happy to go in hard on a 6-dog field, and particularly for top 3, we're paying out a dividend on half of the field. And there are a couple of dogs that looked past the post the other night that you would have only backed with a significant amount of money, Ophelia Allen and Nelso Allen. So the feeling that I got leading in and the feeling that I got the vibe, watching the pools, having discussions with people since, is that for the casual punters, the bet count is potentially down because backing dogs at $1.28 or trying to get a trifecta or first four when it looks like it's going to pay $4 or $10 is not that enticing to them. But for the higher punters, the higher stakes punters, they'll be happy to go in fairly hard. The figures are being made available to Greyhound Racing New Zealand. I spoke with Greg Kerr, the racing operations manager, and they are going to do an in-depth analysis of the breakdown of all the figures. And once that's done, then they'll have a thought out of one very small sample. We need a much bigger sample, obviously, and Greyhound Racing New Zealand acknowledge that. But first and foremost, there's a new lure arm that's going to be introduced March the 1st, coming out of Christchurch, which was trialled at Christchurch on the Friday, and Alan Clayton from Greyhound Racing Victoria was there for that too, because they've been using them across there. That could also have an effect on the way the racing goes. They need to analyse that first before they then go to a greater trial on 6-dog fields. I'm with you, and other people have said this to me too, Andy, including some significant punters. 6-dog maiden fields really seem to make sense.
Yeah, they do. Like I said, those high-graded dogs, they tend to know what they're doing and where they're going, whereas maidens need to learn, and 6-dog field's potentially the way to go forward for them. A series that we do have underway currently at the Manawatu is the Golden Chase. We're 2 weeks into that currently. Here's a look at the leaderboard, and Rozo, this changed a little bit on Monday. Ask King Jeff after being scratched on Friday. He went around 25 and 78. That was enough to put him right on top.
That Class 4 race on Monday afternoon that we are going to have a look at, Andy, was an outstanding race. If you didn't know the grade of it, you'd say, well, that's a grade 5. Now, this is Big League Diva accelerating to the lead. She had a previous best winning time of 25 and 95. Well, she lifted things here to run a 25 and 83 that put her third on the leaderboard for this series. Asking Jeff has equalled his personal best at the 25 and 78. And then You Can Be ran third, but faster than its winning time last week with a sub 26 seconds there. And Diddley, the St Ledger winner, finished fourth, but posted a 26.05, so was quite high on that leaderboard as well. Ask King Jeff was scratched with kennel cough on Friday, but the fact is he didn't have kennel cough. He was misdiagnosed. The dog was represented. There is no kennel cough about, and he's quite an old dog. I did ask a couple of questions around that at the time. It did seem odd. But anyway, he was scratched on Friday night. He was represented. He was allowed to race on Monday, and as you can see, he ran right up to his very best and is now atop the Golden Chase leaderboard. Andy, on Monday, we've got some of the higher profile dogs going around like Monster Fish, etc., but no sort of new blood coming in that we can highlight this week. But probably after the Auckland Cup, in the last sort of 2 weeks of this Golden Chase period leading up to the 18th of March, we're going to see dogs who at the moment are focusing on Manukau. They will be coming out to play, I suggest. They have to race at Manawatu, and they get the option, of course, the solo trial as well. So the last couple of weeks could be fairly frenetic in the chase.
They certainly could be. It's time now to have a look at last week's wash-up out of the DogZone tipping segment. And here's a look at how Philippa and Rozo were able to do. Philippa tipping 3 winners with a couple of seconds. Rozo getting home perfect result there in a couple of thirds. Rozo, not a bad effort. 4 winners between the two of you. That's better than none.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, Ophelia Allen was very short, ended up about $1.22. I think she started $1.25 in the morning there. Butterball was nice on Friday. And Philippa had custom paint as well, but it didn't win on the Thursday, but did come out and win on Memorial Day on the Sunday. Perfect result was obviously the perfect result for me, but a couple of the others were a little bit average, Andy. So we welcome you back, mate, because the last time you were here, you tipped something that people could have actually backed fixed at double figure odds. So come on, do it again.
I'll do my best. In terms of my bet, I've got 3 of them going around this week. A grading special on Thursday. Vikings, he downgrades to Class 3 after last competing in the Waikato Cup, so he's a massive downgrader. Sunlit Johnny comes up with the 1 draw at Christchurch on Thursday. He looks hard to beat, and expecting improved run from Big Time Mini, draws up beautifully in box number 1 at Wanganui on Friday. Rozo, short and sharp from me, just the 3 for the week ahead. How about you?
Andy, I've got 3 for Friday night at Hattrick. Nomination's quite thin there because a lot of the CD dogs are heading to Manukau at the moment, and some really good races on Sunday that you need to watch, especially race 9, the Mungari Bridge Tavern Manukau Cup at 3:48. But I'm going Kamara Park, getting back to Hattrick. Might be starting to show some consistency now. Party Every Day's worth going again. Bit of a black book run from last week. Andy, big time Charlie's up against Sir Dougie. I'm not saying this dog will win, but I saw him trial at Manawatu Monday before last. I think he could get into the placings there at big odds for Marie Gowan.
Oh, we always love a place bolter to throw in behind Dougie just to make the tries and first fours worth coming for. Well, that's all we have time for here on DogZone. Rozzo, thank you for joining us once again, and we'll see you here again the next week.
A lot of discussion points today, Andy. More to come too in the next few weeks. And for now, let's let the dogs do the talking, eh?
That's it from us here at DogZone. We'll be back next week with more reviews and previews of greyhound racing from around the country. But until then, happy punting.